Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to school. Everything's cool. I'm here joined by my amazing co-hosts, Brandon and Julie. Say what's up, you guys.
What's up?
That's gonna be hard to.
I feel like that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a Patreon or if we kept that in, but today we have an exciting episode for you guys, like we always do. I'm gonna go ahead and start it off. I'm going to talk about religion. So one of the things that I want to talk about is I wanted to keep it kind of like on one of the biggest like religious figures that I see in like Mexican American culture, which is Our Lady of Guadalupe, or in Spanish. Julie, do the honors.
Oh, La Virgen de Guadalupe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. You saw that? Wow. She's not an Osabo kid. So the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I always thought that I always thought for some reason, since we all went to private school, I always thought that like the Guadalupe was like interchangeable between the Virgin Mary, you know. And they are technically, it's like I guess in the canon,
It's the same person,
It's the
just
same,
different
yeah.
interpretations, right?
Yeah, but it isn't recognized by like the Christian faith. And I don't know if a lot of people knew that yet. Like basically, like the Lady of Guadalupe doesn't really exist, and I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, like the religion like doesn't exist or like it's not true. I mean it in the sense of like even the religion itself doesn't really acknowledge it. And it's interesting because it has like deep origins in indigenous roots. You know, if it came like around the 16th century was when the story I think happened. I think in 1531 was when they told the story of like Juan Diego, right? How what was the story? Do you know?
I think he was. I don't know if he was traveling. I feel like he was traveling
Yeah.
or something, and then, that's when like the Virgen like appeared to him and like
Gave him roses. right?
roses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, that's been a while since
You
I
remember
talked
that?
about that story.
Well, because
Remember we used to do like plays for it.
Yeah, I remember he has like he carries the roses in his
Yeah,
like
he
poncho,
carries
right?
the
and then
he carries
when
them,
he
and
drops it, that's when the
that's-
image
yeah.
shows up. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually have the actual like picture of Guadalupe in Mexico.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever seen it.
in like the cathedral.
So it's like his in the canon, it's his actual like robe or whatever.
Yeah,
yeah, in the canon, yeah, you could go and see it in like the Virgin Mary like showed itself. But what a lot of people don't know is that it's actually there's some debate on whether or not that's actually like, well, obviously it's religion, right? So it's factual.
Yeah.
But there's some debate on whether or not the Our Lady of Guadalupe is actually just like a remix of an indigenous deity. And the indigenous deity is Tonantzin. I hope I pronounced that right. I hope I did. I should have totally have like practiced my
use text to speech to.
yeah. Because I really think it's important to pronounce them, but it's okay.
Mm.
And I hope that's how you pronounce it. But it's called Tonantzin. So the reason why a lot of people think that there's like maybe some kind of correlation there is that when the Spaniards came in the 16th century, they wanted to kind of assimilate a lot of the indigenous people. And the best way that they could do that is to kind of convert a lot of their religious beliefs into what the Spanish already believed. And one of obviously the most popular Spanish beliefs is the Virgin Mary, you know, this deity of like motherhood and like prosperity. And they saw that the indigenous people already had their own figure for that, Tonantzin. And so what they did is that they converted their stories together, and they made Tonantzin become basically Guadalupe. And the reason why people say that there's like these correlations between them is that Tonantzin literally means a revered mother, like the Mother Mary. And she represents motherhood and prosperity. And so this is kind of a way that they chose to assimilate like a lot of the indigenous people. And I just thought it's mind blowing because as somebody who grew up in private school and was constantly shown Our Lady of Guadalupe, I think it's mind blowing to me that this whole time I was basically celebrating this indigenous deity. You know, there's so many like there's so many like subliminal ways that there's still a lot of indigenous culture embedded into Mexican culture that like a lot of people don't know or like are unaware of.
Yeah.
In a way, it's kind of beautiful, but in a way it's saddening because it's like as if it contributes to what we were talking about last week of the brainwash of like, a lot of people believe these things and they hold them so near to them, but they have no idea that it's really just like as if they're flaunting it in your face of where you really come from and your origins, right? How do you feel, G? Because I know you I don't know if you're wearing it right now, but I know you even have a necklace for it, right?
Yeah. I'm not wearing it right now, but I feel like I've always been a fan.
I knew there was something there.
I've always been like, if I'm honest, like there's times when I do like pray of like stuff. Usually when like I'm at my low, I'll be like, I need help. And I always feel like I pray to like the Virgin Mary for the most part, or I always talk to her. I also have like I forget what they're called, but it's like those images that have like the baby faces. I forget what they're called. They have like a specific name, but I have one of like the Virgen. I bought it at like a swap meet. My parents like bought it for me, and I have it in my room. And I took it with me like when I went to college and everything. So like I've always been like I said, I've always been a fan. Like I've always kind of like praised her in a way. I don't know if it's because she's also a woman. And I just think in general, like, I think also, I also saw it, like, the thing that's at the, I think it's called the cathedral. It's like, I see it as art. Like, it's another form of art. Like, that, I see it as a painting. Like,
that's a good interpretation.
Because, like, there's another painting that it reminds me of, which is The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. And, like, it looks kind of similar, but The Kiss is like two couples, and then that one is like just La Virgen. So like to me, I always just saw it as art, and it looks really beautiful. Like I like that she's in green, and like she has stars which represent kind of like the sky and everything. And like she's wearing like pink, and I know there's like different interpretations where she's like in blue and white, because it's like for purity and all that. And I like that there's like the little angel on the bottom with the moon, so it's like the sky. Like she generally is representing kind of like the sky. So I always saw it as art. Like that's how I saw it as. Like I didn't know the indigenous background until like a couple of years ago. But I feel like I always just liked it because she always looked beautiful there. Yeah. And because like a little bit of the backstory is like they call her another name is La Morenita. So like she's dark skinned. Like she's the only one who's really dark skinned. From at least what I've seen, right? Or like her interpretation, they always call her La Morenita, which is like dark skinned woman. Which is why I'm also like a huge fan, because I was like,
it's like you're fangirling.
Yeah, because I don't know. I feel like to me, out of all the stories that like that were there, were like that, and then I think around my birthday is when it's Juan Diego's birthday. I think his birthday is like December 12th. So like that's when they celebrate La Virgen de Guadalupe. So there's like a whole celebration for her. Like there's like a whole party. Basically, you know how there's Christmas? There's a whole time before that, which is I think it's December 12th. Where they celebrate La Virgen and like how she appeared and all that. Yeah. So like I generally like I feel like I just had a really good upbringing with her, that I just really like enjoy it, and like I really love it. Like I like her interpretation. Like I like who she is, and like what she kind of like how she looks basically. What gets me is generally what really gets me is her green thing with like the stars on it. That's like cool, that's really nice. Like that's the thing that I love the most, because I think I even used to watch like La Rosa de Guadalupe, if you guys know what that is.
Oh yeah.
I've seen it.
It was from Univision, and they would always play, you know, like when she would leave like the thing. I always love that they represented her with her like thing, like the green thing. Like if she was there, like it would also be there. And again, like it was a white rose because of purity. Like she's La Virgen, right? Yeah. So I'm just like in general, I think her, I guess, story is what like I would just really like it a lot.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that there is evidence to suggest that Guadalupe is that indigenous deity, because you also see a lot of depictions before pre-colonial times. You see depictions of that deity, and you see that she is wearing the hood the same way that the La Virgen was wearing the hood. And then you also see that in 1956, there's actually evidence that somebody named Francine Frier, how do you say this? Friar,
yeah. Friar.
So a letter dated in 1556, the Francis Friar Bernardino wrote that the indigenous people referred to the lady as Tonat Sen, which means our revered mother in Nahuatl language. So that's what they were referring to the Virgin Mary when they first saw her. So there's already suggestions that there was like evidence that the people already kind of saw that.
So basically, there's no like concrete, but there's a lot of evidence pointing to that being the case.
Yeah. It's up for debate because obviously, I think with a religion, it's a lot. It's very hard, touchy subject.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it interesting because like it's obviously very, very ingrained into the culture. Like tons of people have tattoos of her. You can't throw a stone. You can throw a stone in LA and hit a mural of her. Like there's one like down the street, you know what I mean? I agree with Julie. I always thought it was so cool because remember in church, I never really liked going to church, but like it looked beautiful when remember it would take up like the entire church where people could just leave roses around it and they'd like build like these. It looked really cool. But I don't know. I guess I can see the conflict, right? Because it's like on one end, right? It's like it's a way for them to make it their own and to like add to it.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, it's kind of like a connection to their roots. They just aren't aware of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But on the other end, it's kind of like, well, it kind of sucks because it's like, it seems like they kind of also made it like a way to make the colonizing dogma more palatable. You know what I mean? You know? So
Totally.
it's like, I don't know. I don't have a
dog in this fight.
I don't have a dog in this fight because I feel like it's really near and dear to the heart of, I mean, I can't speak to other Latinos because I don't know how that but it seems very ingrained in Mexican culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the show, I always see clips of it on TikTok, and I did see it growing up because I thought it was kind of funny, just because it's
Yeah, La Rosa.
yeah, because they kind of made her like a superhero, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I think there was one episode I saw, right, where the little girl gets kidnapped, like because she's on her phone all the time, and like I don't know. I thought it was a little funny, but yeah, it's
it was kind of
interesting.
like a show to like teach kind of like lessons. And
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
And kind of like what is it, like enlightenment or like realizations in a way.
yeah.
Because you can look at it through either the pessimistic or optimistic point of view, right? The optimism is that it's beautiful that throughout generations and centuries of brainwash, somehow our indigenous roots still manage to show, right? The pessimistic is like, bro, it's like they're still flaunting the brainwash there.
Yeah.
I kind of like the optimism just because because you see that it's not accepted yet by the Christian faith. So in a way, it's still kind of Mexican Americans' own thing.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's still kind of the same deity it's been since before pre-colonial times, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of beautiful.
She just looks different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like when they make her darker skin. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel like I don't know. I feel like I respect every whatever opinion you lie on it. But I do think it's cool that they like embraced it and made it their own. Because like you said, the Christian, like the official lore doesn't. She's not recognized in the official lore.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool.
Well, because it only exists like in like Mexico.
Yeah.
Like I remember my friend. She also went to, I think, like a private school. And she showed a picture of like La Virgen, and they were like, "Who is that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's La Virgen de Guadalupe." And they were like, "Who is that?" Like they didn't recognize it. And then she's like the Virgin Mary. And then they were like, "No, she's not. Like that's not real. Like she doesn't exist." They knew her as like the one with like the white and the blue, but they were like, "That one doesn't exist here." Like,
does the rosary come from that? Because rosary, no.
Does
yeah,
it?
I
Do
mean,
you know?
you
No, I remember praying. Oh my god, I remember when they pulled us out of class.
Oh my god, I do remember.
Well,
because
remember, I guess the part I hated about it because they'd make us kneel for 50 Hail Marys, and because like the people who were in the church were obviously super into it, they take their goddamn time, so we'd be kneeling for like 2 hours.
And if you even like move for a second, they're like disrespectful.
Yeah.
no recess for you.
Yeah, you know. So that, well, they sing too, right?
They sing.
And I remember
They do. Yeah, they do. We have one of our uncles dates one of the girls who she's like a pro at it, and she does sing. She sings it. I don't know when they do it. I'm not a religious.
I know
person.
they sing to like. I remember when when like the older ladies would come, and they would start singing and stuff. Like I remember that. I don't know how it goes though. I don't remember the song. because I hated singing.
Well, I remember also they carry her through like the streets too, right? And they had like a little. Do you remember when they close off all the shit and they like carry her around? They do that twice. They do that when they recreate Jesus being crucified, and then they do it with the Virgin Mary. But both very hyped events.
And their Coachella.
That's Coachella, and I don't know what's the other
EDM.
one. Yeah.
What's it called?
You know, they even
EDC?
did it recently. Since I work like on the main avenue right here.
Yeah.
I was about to name it. Oh shit! I was about to dox myself. They passed by the Stations of the Cross.
Well, because I remember I did it once. Because what did they crown her or something? I barely remember, but I remember it was me and this other girl in my class who we had to like go and like do something to it. I barely remember. I just remember for whatever reason I wanted to faint because I don't know. I guess I didn't drink enough water or something. But yeah.
It gets pretty hot, bro, especially around this time. So I imagine.
Well, because I also remember, you know how you mentioned that like people would leave like roses for her.
Yeah.
I remember there's a picture of me for like my quinceañera because like
And you're
my
like,
birthday's on like December. I think that weekend they had already been leaving like roses there. So there's a picture of me like, because for your quinceañera, at least to the church that like we used to go to, they say that you can do that, and then you also have to leave roses for La Virgen when you do your like church thing. So like
I remember that too.
So I remember I had like a bouquet of it and I put it there, and there was already like a shit ton of like roses there.
Yeah.
And it's basically just paying respects to her because you're turning 15. And then I remember the picture looks sick because it's like it's all like roses and then it's her right there, and then it's like my back facing her.
Yeah.
You know, since we're talking about 15s, you know what I've been wanting to ask you about quinces? Do you think it's important to have a quince?
I think it's cool. I feel like I would have preferred maybe having one like when I was 18. Like that would have been
really
nice. Yeah. I feel like 15 is just really, really young.
because it's supposed to be that you turn into a woman, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that idea, though? Do you think as 15, do you feel like a woman?
I know at least for me, I feel like I started being more connected to, I guess, being a woman. At that time, because I remember that's when I started like actually like doing my makeup and like seeing what I wear and everything, and like just enjoying like that side of it all. It's cool though. I feel like it's fun because it's still like your birthday, but it's a bigger celebration. I really like that we did like the dances and everything. Like that was cool, at least for me. And like we got to wear my surprise dance was like we were dressed up as mariachi, so that was funny. I don't know. I think they're really cool to have as like girls, and then kind of like transition, I guess, to a woman. Yeah. I don't know if there's more backstory to that. Like
I looked it up right now. You want to know what it is? I looked up quinceañera origin. It said back in the day of the Aztec Indians, when a girl turned 15, she would be considered to be ready for marriage. This celebration of age turned to more of a celebratory event for a young girl turning into a woman. So a lot of our culture really is rooted in indigenous teachings, which is kind of cool. But do you think, I don't know, at 15, I know that like, what do you think that says about our culture that we consider women to be 15?
Well, because I feel like before, like back then, I think people used to like get together really, really young, no?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. All people back in the day.
What was the average lifespan of an Aztec person?
That's a good question.
Because I feel like that could be middle-aged back then. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
So Julie, when you were going through the moment, you didn't feel like it was a little overwhelming to be considered a woman at 15? Or you were just like, I'm just having fun?
I don't think I actually like saw it that way. I think I more just saw it as like, it's a cool family tradition, or like it's a cool tradition that we have as like Mexicans, because like I feel like I always saw kind of like shows about it where like the one which was Wizards of Waverly Place, when like Selena Gomez was turning 15 and her mom was like, I never had one, so I want you to have one. And I feel like I kind of felt that way for like my mom, because I feel like she kind of had her own like celebration, but she didn't have it like as big as, I guess, like kind of like how I had it. And I still didn't want like something huge. Like we did it at my dad's shop. Like we didn't rent like a venue or anything. We just rented a big tent and they just decorated it. Like for me, it was just more of like I really liked like the dress and like the crown and everything, and like that was really nice because I feel like I felt very like pretty. I feel like I felt just really nice that day. I feel like I had no care in anything. Like I just genuinely was just enjoying that it was my birthday and
You
like,
felt like a
I got to
princess?
dress up. Yeah. Wait, what'd you say?
You felt like a princess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Did you-
It was really cool.
Did you go harder because of that thing about mommy?
Yeah, I feel like
I called her mommy live on the show. I call my mom mommy. I don't know. Everybody. I feel like everybody does. Whatever.
Yeah.
Shame me. But
yeah, I feel like that was like a big part of it because I feel like it was a very big like bonding moment for us because like I got to like shop with her and like she was the one who always wanted me in dresses and I was the one who kind of always hated dresses and like heels and stuff. And so like going with her and like preparing for like the party and everything, I feel like was really nice. Even though we fought, like every once in a while we'd like fight about it or something. But for the most part, I think we like equally enjoyed like the preparation of everything.
so, do you think you're gonna pass down that tradition if you have a daughter?
Yeah, but I feel like I want her to have an 18 though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I feel like
What's
just to be
the really
like,
big difference?
well, because at least at the time when I did it, I didn't really like have friends to like invite over
Yeah.
because I had just left like middle school and I went into high school.
Oh, okay. I get
So
you.
I feel like it was a weird like transition. And then I had seen a girl who did an 18 and I feel like it was a lot nicer. Like, cause like, I feel like you're also just a lot more older, you know, you feel a lot more older than like for me, it would have been like going into college and kind of just having that. But I mean, it's also like up to her choice, I guess, if she wants one. I'm not going to force it on her.
So, do you think it's important or significant to have a quinceañera?
Yeah. I feel like it's only if they want to have it. If my son wants to have one, I'll be like, sure. You'll be the king for the day.
That's cool. I looked up what you said. The average life expectancy for an Aztec was only 25 years old. This is
Damn.
based on studies of the age at death of skeletons found in burials from the Aztec period.
So 15 was middle age then.
Yeah, 15 was basically middle age, and so they'd be like you're in your 50s now. But I don't know, and then stuff like that is kind of hard to like talk about, just because it's like obviously
It was
now
so long ago, different cultural like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it might as well have been a different dimension, different planet.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like now, at least for me, I feel like having an 18 would be better than having a 15, you know? But that's because of the time now, at least for me. But, you know, if she wants a 15, we'll throw a 15.
She's gonna get a quince.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. Brandon, you said you have some questions for us, right?
Yeah, sure. I guess going back to the Virgen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boop, 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 boop,
It's
boop.
based on religious.
I guess it's a little more based on religion, right? All right, so because I mean, if you don't know, now you know. We all went, we all went to Catholic school. I mean, that's kind of a little bit of where this theme comes from. Is we did all go to the same Catholic school. I just wanted to ask what your overall opinion about attending Catholic school was, and like how you think it influenced your relationship with religion and spirituality. Because I feel like it's influenced me a lot. I feel like there's an irreversible presence of Catholicism / Christianity in my life. I do not consider myself religious by any means.
Yeah.
I don't think I believe it. I mean, I don't know. I'm still learning. I don't know. But I feel like every time I do encounter like spirituality, like let's say I was to try meditation or like I don't know, some other version of spirituality that's a little more popular now. In the back of my mind, it kind of reverts a little to prayer. And so it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like, or like, I don't know. There's just always that underlying, I don't know, what would you call it? Perspective of it?
Faith.
Maybe, I guess. So I just wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were.
Yeah. I feel like, well, because we grew up mostly just like Catholic. So I remember as soon as like I left Catholic school, I kind of like, I think hate is a strong word, but I just didn't like religion anymore. Like I think I got so tired of it. Like because when we were in Catholic school, we would go to mass like every Friday.
Yeah.
So like I was constantly always at church. I hated church. Like church was so boring. Like I hated how like the priest would talk to us if we didn't respond. Like we'd have to repeat shit every single time. Like they would use it to like punish us sometimes. So once I left, I remember I wanted to disconnect from religion so much. Like I remember I was like, I don't like it. Like I hate how they treat us. Like I hate how like it's like they try to like throw it at us so much that I generally, when I was like in high school, I was like, I want no association to it. Like I was kind of like, I'm over it. Cause they would even push us to like go to like Catholic high school. Like I remember that, and I remember they would push us to like go to like an all girl high school or an all guy high school. Yeah. And I remember being like, nah. I was like, I've been here for what, 9 years, and I'm gonna do another 4. I was like, no, hell no. And so I was just like, nah. Like I remember, like leaving and just being like, I don't ever want to go to church in my life again. Which I did end up still going because I had to do my confirmation, which my mom kind of forced me to do that, but I hated it. It was cool because I guess I kind of reconnected to like my middle school friends. But other than that, I was kind of like, I'm over this. Like, I don't want to be.
But how does it affect you now? Like, do you feel like nowadays you ever feel like something's going bad in your life? I mean, you said you were talking about the Virgin Mary, right? Mm-hmm. So do you still feel like a lot of that faith and those ideas are embedded in you?
I feel like I still, like, I for sure still like pray. I don't pray like every single day, but I pray, I feel like when I need it. In a way where I'm kind of like, I want to get this job, or like,
please God.
Yeah. But I also feel like I use it more as like a thing to kind of like talk to myself in a way, to kind of like if for say like a job, right, and I didn't get it, I don't get mad at like, I guess La Virgen for like it not happening. I'm kind of like, well, I guess it's kind of like it just didn't happen. And I feel like lately it has happened where like shit didn't happen because something else actually did like happen, and it's a lot better. So like I don't think it like I would say I'm fully religious. Like I don't go to church or anything. I just mostly just pray, and I wear it again because I feel like I see it as like art. Like I just wear it and stuff like that. But I don't think I would also want to like force it on anyone. And I don't think my parents also force it on us as much either. And I think that's what I like. I like that they don't really like force it on us or tell us to go to church or like we should pray and do this. Like
as a joke, they kind of do.
Yeah, but it's also like I guess it has its own kind of like traditions. Like when we do the bailes, remember when you went to go see me like dance? So they usually do like celebrations. For the specific, because there's like different Marys in Mexico, and so there's Marys for each, I guess you could say, town or city, and so they always celebrate where like my parents are from like their town, and they dance kind of like a whole traditional like dance, and I think that's really cool. Again, like I feel like I see it as art though, like I see it as like it's a dance and like they're dancing and like it's really cool. It's like music and all this.
The same way you do like Christmas performances, right?
Yeah.
Stanley, some Christmas performances can be deemed as like a religious thing, right?
Well, because Christmas, right? Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't. A lot of people celebrate it and aren't religious, right? I mean, that's.
I did
fine.
think about like if I were to ever have kids, if I want them to go to Catholic school, and I'm kind of like I really don't know because it's like it's like you hear stuff about like public school, right? And like how crazy that was to like some kids, but it's also like Catholic school was also like a whole different world. That I'm also like, because like how I said, I really don't want to throw religion to my kids. Like I don't want that to like be an influence for them. Like if that's what they want to like know and learn about, then like that's fine. But like I like how I said, like in my perspective, that was something that was always thrown on me. Like that was always just like, you should do this, and like you're a bad kid, and like you're not gonna go to heaven or whatever the fuck. And so to me, that's why I'm kind of like I liked how I guess it wasn't as like dangerous or whatever, or it wasn't too bad, but it was still like it's weird. It's like a weird area.
Well, I guess.
go ahead.
Do you mind?
Mm-hmm.
I guess now speaking from my experience, I feel like it was. I had phases of like how I felt about it after we left like private school. Like I felt. My initial phase was like you, where I was just I was done with it. So out of sight, out of mind. I didn't just think about it. It was kind of just wasn't there. Felt very indifferent about it. Then when I got to college, it was more of when I became very enlightened on like the history of like why Mexicans are like religious. And I had kind of my rage phase of where I was actually very much like pissed, and I was pissed a lot about the religion. And I thought I was under that mindset of where I generally thought that if you were a religious person, you're just somebody who's being manipulated. But now the older I get, the more I realize that it affected me in subconscious ways that I know I can never get rid of. You know, I feel like the way I live my life and the way I think about stuff now, even if I don't feel it, I know it's because of what I was taught. You know, and as much as I want to rid myself from all those teachings, no matter what, they're still gonna be there in the small things, you know, that we say. Like even when we talk about, you're right, like when we talk about spirituality or manifestation, it comes out as like prayer and like and like you put it to like a deity, the ways that we were taught when we were kids. And so it becomes very difficult to kind of like try and rid myself of that. And I'm in the phase now where I'm like, I more just accept that these teachings that I were given as a kid were like philosophies. And I ended up being all right. You know, I'm very happy with the way I am. I'm very happy with my headspace. I'm happy with the people that I've surrounded myself. And so then relating that to the question, right, of like, would I want my kids to then be in private school? I weirdly enough I want to be like, yeah, just because I genuinely think I turned out pretty good. And I'm like, other private school kids that I know who actually went through the whole thing and finished it turned out pretty good. You know, like everybody actually ended up pretty good. And it makes me want to be like, yeah, I just do kind of hate that aspect of like, oh man, like some of the shit they tell you as a kid, like you're going to go to hell. And like they show you beheadings and shit for it.
I remember John the Baptist, right? John the Baptist got beheaded. I don't know. I mean, to quick side note, right? To answer if I would send my kids to Catholic school, absolutely not. I feel like there's that knee jerk reaction because it's what I know, it's what I went through. But there's got to be something wrong with that about telling kids that you do this, this, and that, you're gonna burn in hell for eternity. You know what I mean? They never articulated it like that. But kids aren't dumb. Like I remember thinking that, like, oh, I do this, I'm gonna do that. Or like when they make us confess, right? And like, oh, I said this bad word, I hope God forgives me. You know what I mean? When like now it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that, I feel like that's just bad. There's got to be something there that's just wrong. I know there is. I just can't articulate it. You know?
Weirdly enough, I feel like I could also equate that. You know how I was saying like some of the good things in my life, like I know it's because like I obviously went to school and I was taught certain things, how to handle, I guess, like bad times. But I also can equate that to sometimes when I have like bad decisions or like there's something weird or off about me. I also equate it to because I went to private school. Like there was a lot of kids who, because we were kind of like shelved from the world, they overcompensated, and you know, kids were like, you know, doing things ahead of their time that they shouldn't, you know. I've talked about on the show that as a teenager, I got into a lot of trouble, you know, and I can kind of equate that it's because, you know, it was finally time to let loose, you know, and like,
I just think there's like, I don't know, there's a lot of it with it, right? I feel like it's a very sheltered environment. And another quick side note to that, I question the ethics of that, because like I remember when they talk shit about public schools, I'm like, people pay to go here, and I'm like, are you like, because they're eliminating people who can't afford that, you know what I mean? Like, are you kind of like equating to something being a bad school is that there's people who are less financially like stable as you are? I feel like that's kind of weird, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I also feel like to me it was also like, I guess the other thing is I keep thinking about schools, right? Because I feel like right now schools seem to be struggling to even get students. And I actually went to a school recently just to like volunteer for something, and I remember the way that it's a public like school. It's I think K through like 10th grade or something. I don't know. It's like up there. It's like a big like class. And I remember the way that they would talk to the kids, and it started triggering me. Like, it started triggering me the way that they would talk to the kids, because it was just like, it would remind me of like when we would have like assemblies, and like we would have all these things, and they'd be like, you guys aren't loud enough, like say it again or something like that. So in a way, I was kind of like, I feel like there is still some similarities from public to like Catholic schools.
I guess also the way I also see it is like, I have a distinct memory that I'm always like, that's really makes me uncomfortable. As I remember, I can't remember the grade, but I remember it came up, being gay came up in class, and one of the teachers, who will go unnamed, said,
"Go ahead, flaunt it out, bro."
Said, because I remember it was me and this other girl. I was saying, we were both saying like, it's not a choice, and he said, well, look at it this way: if you were born with the innate desire to rob banks, does that make it okay? And I remember being like, that's so fucked up. Like, why would you say that? Yeah. Like, and I'm like, that's the kind of rhetoric that is like innately kind of pushed in this. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like we got a little lucky with our Catholic school, because they're pretty pro-woman. You know what I mean? I remember them voting for Obama and saying like, oh, because Mitt Romney's anti-woman. So that was, I guess, like a lucky draw. But there's a lot of problematic things in that religion that I feel like I don't want my kids like to know about. Because I remember when I went to high school, there was a lot of people in the LGBT community there, and it was very accepted, and a lot of the teachers were very progressive and young, and like talked about these things and didn't shy away from it. But there was a lot of the stuff like that in Catholic school was very taboo. Very like I don't even remember getting sex ed in Catholic school. And I think that's super important. And I remember immediately in high school, that was the first thing that they were teaching. They're teaching about condoms, abortions, all that stuff that I think is super important for young kids.
The only reason I laugh is just because, like, bro, I remember going from private school to then high school and being shocked when I saw a gay kid.
Yeah, right.
Like, and like, I'm serious. Like, I was like, they let that kid like enroll here, and I don't mean it in the like, because I thought gay people were bad. I was like so used to how conservative like private schools were, you know?
Yeah.
And it felt refreshing that I could go to a school where everybody was like accepted, you know? Especially because you're a young kid, you know? Obviously now, if I felt that way, it's probably a problem about me, right? But I was fucking 13-year-old kid and going into high school and being like, whoa, like I never knew there was this whole world around. And I remember, you're right, like I remember one of the first classes I had was an amazing science teacher who literally was telling everybody that like religion was bullshit. Like literally he like stood his ground, and he wasn't like disrespecting people's beliefs. Shout out to that teacher. I wish I could say his name, but I'm not gonna say his name. He wasn't disrespecting people's beliefs, but he was giving evidence and giving arguments and making his students critically think about religion. And even me, as like a private school kid who didn't consider himself religious, even I was scared. I was like, bro, like I'm gonna go to hell. Like this guy's teaching me like blasphemy.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah, and like I'll go on a quick side story, right? So I had lunch with my dad the other day. I talked about it on the podcast last week. And he was talking about, because he went to Catholic school when he was a little kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this was back in the day when they had nuns and they could beat you. He got kicked out, but that's a story for another time. He talked about, my dad does this thing where he only eats the crust of bread. Like he really likes the crust of bread. If you get pizza, he's like, let me have your crust, or let me cut the crust off. Or if he likes bread and wine, so he'll take out the inside, just eat the crust. And he explained why, because he said in Catholic school, the nuns didn't like gluttony, so because that's one of the 7 deadly sins. So they would always get mad at him because he would clean his plate, because he was like, I was hungry, you know. And he said because of that, they would take these like rods. They're like these thick, like pointing rods, I guess. I don't know. You probably know what they look like. And they'd make you put your hands out, and they'd whack you, like, you know what I mean? And that finally one nun was like, you know, hey, like, just eat the crust, like, you know, like, and then that'll save you your beatings, like, you won't get beat. Which I guess, like, I think that's like a funny origin story about how he's like 70 years old and that still sticks. But I can kind of interpolate that in like another way of like, damn, like I feel like that's kind of fucked up. You know what I mean? Like they beat you so hard that like to this day you still like have like a internal like, nah, I'm not gonna eat the whole bread. You know what I mean?
In a way, private school is like scared straight. Like they
A
basically
little bit. And I guess there's also that thing, right, where I saw this not the other day, but a while back, where people talked about manners, right? And this idea of manners and stuff, and looking presentable and all that stuff. And I remember in Catholic school, right? They do uniform inspections. You had to look your best. You had all this shit, all this bullshit, right? And somebody brought up the like racism in like manners, right? And they talked about how that's kind of like, it's trying to remove the like natural inflections, the slangs, all the things that are inherent to certain cultures. And I feel like, I don't know, because I haven't looked into it, but there's probably something there too. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's a lot of things that are deeply problematic that are hard for me to recognize because like that's my childhood. That's how I grew up. That's everything. Like a lot of who I am comes from there. I feel like I just wouldn't want to put my kid through that. You know what I mean? If he wants to find religion on his own, that's
I
whatever.
remember
But,
I also had a classmate who like, because I guess once we had like a new principal and she like changed the uniforms and everything, she required that all the girls always wear skirts. Yeah. Like they couldn't ever wear pants. They couldn't, like never. Like they could never wear them. And I remember there was a girl in my class who hated, like, I'm telling you, she hated like dresses and skirts. And she would always be in pants. Like she was so used to always just being in pants. And then they were just like, no, like you have to wear skirts. And it's like they always kind of like require that. And then like we had like the long ass skirts like below the knee or whatever, or you couldn't be like 2 or 3 inches above the knee or something like that. And like I just remember, to me, I was just like, bro, this is bullshit. I remember the whole time I'm thinking like, why do we have to wear skirts? Like because I also was like more comfortable in pants, like especially if we're like playing around in recess. Like I was kind of like, I don't feel comfortable in a skirt, like just being and like walking around and stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I remember that. I remember during these uniform inspections, there was always this one girl who'd get in trouble for having her skirt a little too high. Like she'd have it, I mean, literally like probably an inch above the knee. You know what I mean? And they would get pissed at her all the time. And it's like, I guess at the time I was like, I don't know, just don't do that, you know? Yeah. But to me now it's like, what are you suggesting, bro? Like we were like 12 years old. You're really suggesting that she's like being sexual? You know what I mean? Like they would say, because they would say that. They're like, oh, like the boys are gonna like, you know what I mean? It's like, you're the one who's sexualizing them. You know what I mean? Like, why are you like, I don't know. So me now is kind of like, it just leaves a very bad taste in my mouth, a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think we got lucky because I think we went to a religious school, but we all didn't have religious parents, you know? And I think in a way, you know, growing up without religion is a blessing, which is kind of ironic, right? Because when you're able to express yourself, that's when you then make choices when you grow older. You know, obviously we were stuck in the private school, but then when we got older, then we had that choice of like, okay, what do we do with those 8 years of just fucking them hammering in all that information? You know, we each all took like a different path. For me, I see it as a philosophy, and where I'm like, if I were to send my kid to that school, I'd be like, think about it in a philosophical sense. Because I just more, I guess, I enjoy the idea of like, I guess, learning about life and death and like thinking about like ethnics and stuff. But I do not enjoy, like I said in last week's episode, I don't like when people really try to make you then follow that rule, you know? I'd like it more if it was almost like a study. Like you just can go there to study and see what it is and see like, oh, okay, like this is what these people believe. You get what I mean? Yeah. And then especially then you add in the colonial aspect, and then that's when I'm really like, all right, well then maybe fuck private school.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Because it's like, I don't know, there's a lot of it, you know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like there's also some people who I didn't know that went to our private school, but who I met who also went to Catholic school. And they were very like unaccepting of a lot of things, you know, very much your God is wrong, your lifestyle is wrong, very much, you know what I mean? I just wouldn't want my kids to like grow up with that, you know, of like, because I feel like as much as people want to, I mean, I guess hot take here, but I feel like as much as people want to talk about like, oh, respect other people's religions, I can speak from personal experience. Christianity does not do that one fucking bit. And look at history. It has not done that ever. And it still doesn't do that, given a lot of the fucking politics that go on right now. And I don't know. I wouldn't want my kid to grow up with that, like treating people less or like not approaching people with understanding. Yeah. Because I feel like that's really important. You know what I mean? The way I see it is like, like I don't mean this as a diss whatsoever. Like I say like, oh, I came out fine, but like I relate it to when people say like, oh, my parents hit me, like my parents beat me and I came out fine, you know what I mean? And so I'm gonna hit my kids, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, I just don't really like appreciate a lot of what goes on in that religion, you know? But like I said, if they want to find it on their own, that's all good, you know?
That'd be interesting. I've never heard of a kid who finds it on their own, though. I've heard of adults who do, but I've never heard of a kid who's like, I want to be religious. Adults do it because it's like a form of being reborn. You know, that's how you get born again Christians. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Imagine your kid goes up to you and is like, "Dad, I think I want to go to private school."
Yeah, they're like, "Are you sure?"
He's like, "It just looks really nice." Oh, I met a friend who came from it, and he said he misses it, and I want to go. Honestly, I don't know. Never mind. I could totally imagine some dumbass kid being like that. Like, all right, well, it's what you want.
Yeah,
oh, for sure.
Well, I remember when I like left, and I remember in like when people started, I guess, doing the tours or whatever.
Yeah,
I remember being like, don't go to that school. I remember just being like, I think the way I kind of grew up on it was just that teachers were really mean. Like, I don't think it was more with them always like praising like the religion. I think it was just they were just mean and like they were just really unfair. And I think that's why I didn't like it. Well, and up until now, like to like just in general schools and the way teachers sometimes treat kids, I think that's what like gets me, like of like how they're treated and you're not there, like to kind of like supervise them of how like they're being treated, whether it's a public or a private school, right? But I think overall, like I know it was such a big influence on me just because like not only like did I ever hear about like La Virgen or like God in like school, but it was also at home. Like it wasn't forced on us, but it was there. Like there was images there, like there was stuff there still surrounding it a lot. But I'm like, I remember when I left, and again how I said like I really kind of like hated it. I remember that's when I started like painting my nails and like I even dyed my hair because like they wouldn't allow that there, and that's when I started doing like my makeup and like I generally was like trying to get away from it because it like how you guys said like they had us in there where it was just like you can't paint your nails, you can't wear makeup, you can't dye your hair, it has to be all natural. Like they like sheltered us so much that like when I left I legit was like turning rebellious.
Well, I'm telling you, it's weirdly enough, like religion, at least the one we can talk about is Catholic religion or Christian religion. That religion makes you very submissive. Like that's what it is. So then when you leave that religion, that's why then all these things come out that were repressed. Yeah. You know, and that's dangerous because a lot of people, you know,
go to the opposite end.
Yeah.
Right? It goes from one end to the opposite end, you know?
And I also feel like the difference with I guess our school was that it was predominantly a lot of Latinos. Yeah. Like it was predominantly like teachers for the most part were POC. There was like the occasional like white person there. Yeah. But it was because it was in a neighborhood full of like of Latinos and stuff. Yeah. And like I think that's why our experience is different because I mean if you see it now like it's a lot more diverse now and it's a lot more different. And I think I remember for our school, they used to have programs like if you couldn't afford it, you would do community service hours or something like that. Something there was like, and then now I know that they do like scholarships and stuff. Yeah. But before I remember my parents hated the community service stuff because they were just like, we really have to like go and donate our time when like we work like every single day, like 9 to 5 and stuff. And they hated that. That's why they would donate stuff. They'd just be like, here. That's it. They wouldn't, they also didn't like showing up. And I think that's why like for us, it was a lot more different because our parents weren't so strict on it. Yeah. Because they were also like, no.
Yeah. All our parents were like, what? You have to, religion is a fucking subject? Like, bro, don't worry about that shit. Yeah. Because remember we would get graded, part of our GPA. Yeah. We would have to like, if you didn't memorize like this passage of the Bible.
Remember it was, they test us on the Beatitudes, right? Do you remember that? That's the one, that's Jesus's remix of the 10 Commandments or something like that. I remember that.
Fuck, man.
Well, remember
you know
we
what's
even
funny?
did our what is it? Our first communion, and we would get tested, or else we wouldn't like do
Oh,
our
you
first
had
communion.
to know the prayers by heart. I
You
remember
had to
that.
know like the 10 Commandments and some shit like that.
You had to know the 10 Commandments, the 7 sacraments, the 7 deadly sins. You had to know the difference between, what was it, venial and mortal sin? I'm telling you, I
There was
remember
a
because
lot,
they
and that was-
fucking
and that was
Yeah,
us-
you remember a lot more
And that
than
was
I do.
us in like second grade, no?
Yeah,
That was like first grade.
I think
Well,
First
I was
grade,
gonna-
second grade.
I was just gonna say like on another thing of like just kind of like of cons that a lot of like private school gives you. It's just a lot of cringe. Like there's just so much cringe, bro. I'm just thinking about how before we went to lunch, we would have to sing prayers. Do you remember? But they'd be in the tune of iconic music.
songs.
So it'd be like the Superman theme song or the Addams Family theme song, and it'd be like Jesus, like it'd be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's to me is one of the biggest cons too.
You know what was a funny thought that I actually had one time was because you know how they're like you should save yourself until like marriage or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I looked at my teacher and I was like, "Ain't no fucking way you haven't had sex yet." Because like some of them weren't married.
Some of them weren't married and had kids.
Yeah, and I'm like, ain't no fucking way.
Yeah,
I was
like-
like, ain't no fucking way.
Yeah.
Y'all are lying to me.
Y'all don't seem to be practicing what you preach.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why it was always so weird because it's like they preached all of these things, but they wouldn't follow it either. Like,
Oh, yeah, for
but they're
sure.
throwing it at us.
I
Like that
guess
shit was fucking annoying.
I also feel it probably sucks to have that like turmoil because I feel like some people were probably grew up very religious. Like but like let's say I was sending my kid to Catholic school and they were like, oh, sex before marriage is a sin. But then I was at home being like, oh, don't listen to that, don't do that. And it's like, why am I giving him that like internal turmoil? You know what I mean? That internal like, who do I trust? Like, oh, so I don't trust anybody. Like, why am I? You know what I'm? You know what I'm
That's true.
saying?
No,
Like,
Yeah, that's a good point. That's
like
a good point.
I don't know. I just.
That's a good point. Yeah, I probably won't send my kids to private school
Cause
anymore.
I don't know. I feel like as I got older, there was a lot of stuff that like I don't know that I ever believed, but I'm telling you, they're very convincing with that like hell and sin shit. You know what I mean? So it skews a lot of your decision making, I think. And I don't know. It's like I remember the venial. I think it's venial. Those are the like the cuss words and like you talk back to your parents. And then there's mortal sin, which is like murder, and that was unforgivable to God and all that bullshit.
I remember the one that to me I always thought would creep me out or like really fuck with me and fuck with my head when I was a kid was the story of Cain and Abel because I have a brother.
Oh, that one brother killed the other.
Yeah. I was always like, damn, that's crazy. Like they were the sons of the first like humans and they killed each other immediately. Like
Yeah.
murder was really that innate, you know? It really fucked with my head. So I do agree to that aspect. I think it's like to be a kid, these are like adult like concepts that you're being presented and sometimes they're really fucked up concepts.
Yeah. Cause I remember, I was never scared of it, but I remember sometimes seeing, cause the one they have at the one we went to, the Jesus on the cross, it's very like detailed and gruesome, and I remember being like,
Aren't his eyes like rolling back or something?
I know he's just covered.
I
in
haven't
blood.
been there.
In my
in a while.
nightmares probably. In my nightmares
I
probably.
just know.
been
I
there in
mean,
a
it wasn't
while.
scary. I just remember I didn't like staring at it for too long because it looked very realistic.
Yeah.
Weird enough, I almost was fascinated because it was so realistic. Because I remember like his ribs had like
Oh, yeah.
skin peeled off.
Yeah.
And the blood was like pouring
He
down.
has the one because I remember the lore. He has a giant stab mark here because and it's like
Oh, yeah,
gushing
yeah.
blood because in the story, the Roman guards stabbed Jesus to make sure he was dead, and they collected his blood, which would then become the Holy Grail, right? And that's the origin story of the wine we drink, you know. And I always thought, oh my God, that's so gruesome.
We're
man.
drinking his blood?
Low key though, I remember going to other churches and being like, our shit goes off more though.
Yeah, I'll say that. I'll give them that dub.
Yeah, it's very.
They went
cool.
off with the statue of a corpse decaying.
Yeah, right.
Well, because objectively, it's weird, right? Imagine being a 5-year-old looking up and seeing this guy dying and
Yeah.
like being ripped apart.
There's
and,
like blood.
and they're like,
Yeah.
"You're gonna drink his blood now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay."
And eat his body.
Bro, they would give us alcohol really young.
Watered down.
That's crazy.
Though. Watered down.
It was
though.
watered down.
post pandemic, that makes me cringe because I'm like, oh my god, bro, we were all sharing the same cup. People probably backwash, didn't brush their fucking teeth.
All
Wouldn't
kids
they clean
too.
it? Wouldn't they clean it though?
With a fucking napkin. That doesn't work.
It'd be like when you take a shit and you. Oh wait, actually, a lot of people do that. I was gonna say, when you take a shit, do you just wipe your ass with just toilets, or do you use like the baby wipes?
Well, no, the analogy is right. If you got shit on your hands, you wouldn't just wipe it off with a paper towel. You'd wash your hands profusely.
Right. So why don't you when you take a shit?
I don't know. How come they never gave us like little shot glasses? You know, because I remember kids would be funny like, bro, I'm gonna drink a lot. Like
some kids would be scheming. They're like, I'm gonna get a big gulp.
I'm gonna get a big gulp, but I don't know. Or
I remember that shit was always nasty.
No, yeah, I never actually liked it. I remember thinking
I
there was
the bread.
Yeah, I'd take the bread because it was the morning and I was hungry.
Chewy.
And then but I'd usually skip the wine. Actually, I remember my aunt telling me to do that because she would tell me that she didn't like the aspect of it being germs. So I'd always be like, I'm good.
You know, that is crazy too, because everybody's kids, and sometimes it'd be like we had fucking mass after like, I don't know, lunch or something. Yeah. Everybody's eating nachos and shit, and like obviously nobody's brushing their teeth. A bunch of kids.
Little kids don't brush their teeth.
They're backwashing there.
They're backwashing. They're like.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of. To me, the biggest con of private school is there's a lot of cringe. There's just a lot of cringe. But yeah, more questions.
Y'all didn't
for
like
us?
the programs that we used to do, the Christmas programs.
I always missed them. So
I thought the Stations of the Cross was cool. I mean, I know all the shit I just talked, but
remember there was a talent show.
Hey man,
we had a talent show.
We used to have talent shows.
Oh yeah, I remember one girl did karate. I remember that. But I only liked the Stations of the Cross because I got a good role. I was Pontius Pilate.
He got the leading role.
I got to just sit there. No, the leading role was Jesus Christ himself. I was the villain.
He was the villain.
Villains get all the best lines.
You got the supporting actor award.
Yeah.
I was what was it?
You were a weeping woman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the Roman soldier, bro. I remember, and I did my part pretty well.
You were a cop, basically.
I was basically a cop.
I should have known.
Man, you know what? Fuck religion. I'm never fucking talking about religion again.
The songs, there's still songs that.
No, the songs always get stuck in my head sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes, Lord. Yes.
I'm telling you, that's what, I don't know. That's so cringe to me. I don't know why.
We do what is it? He came from heaven to.
That one went off though.
Well, because people would like dance.
People would be like twerking and shit.
Yeah.
People would not. I'm not even making a joke. People would be fucking like throwing their body around.
I remember when we would go to the cathedral, and that was basically like Coachella church. School. They'd be like, "Oh, the Archbishop, he's a headlining, you know."
He's you know. Oh, you dropped out. Yeah. No way. They were gonna have a skating performance.
There was one time I forgot the name of the guy. It was the guy who was accused of covering up a bunch of child
abuse scandals.
Child abuse scandals, and he had to step down. I forgot his name, but they had the guy perform. Like he led the mass here, and everybody was like going in droves to see the guy. And I remember being like, "What? Like they're having that guy at a school?"
I think this might have been after she already graduated.
No, it was after I graduated too. I forgot his name. If I said it, you guys would probably remember, but because they had like a nickname for him. But he was like the Archbishop, and you know the archbishops and all that shit. They were like big deals or whatever. And they had that guy do like the mass there, and I remember being like, "What the fuck? Y'all had the fucking at a school too, like not even at just a regular church, a school one. That's a little interesting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of things that leave bad taste in my mouth.
Because there's a lot of just hypocrisy.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like, how you gonna tell me I'm fucking going to hell for fucking saying the word fuck, and then like you're gonna turn around and do all that monstrous shit. And have the balls to tell me all that, but I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, man. That's why you just
I never
do
going
good
back
for the purpose of doing good, man.
I ain't never going back, and neither are my kids.
Oh, I changed your mind.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you changed my mind too. I'm probably just gonna homeschool my kids.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe. Who knows?
I feel like I'm just for sure
no?
gonna do a lot of research on schools.
Yeah.
Like what they do and everything.
I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to get scared of schools, dude, with all the shootings that are happening. I wouldn't be surprised if homeschool becomes popular, especially with all the AI shit, and they get like homeschool teachers, better shit like that.
Oh, but I wouldn't want that to happen.
I wouldn't want that to happen either. Like I think it's very important to like engage with other kids and shit like that. But,
I think so too.
I don't know. It's pretty scary
That's
these days.
That's the thing, because like how I said, like when I want to go visit like other schools, And just seeing how like some teachers, I guess, treat kids, I'm just like, it genuinely for me kind of like scares me because it's like I'm not there. Like
That aspect
I don't
scares me
see
more,
these.
yeah.
I don't see these things, and I feel like sometimes kids are also very like they don't like speaking on certain things. I know, like for example, for like my nephew, like I know that there's a kid that hits him. Like
Yeah.
I think there's a kid that actually like is mean to him.
Yeah.
And like they're teaching him now like to kind of like say like if somebody's hitting you, like let us know. If somebody's being mean to you, like you have to tell us. So like they're showing him like
Yeah.
if some shit is going on. But to me it just scares me knowing the fact that I'm not there if it's an adult. Like
Yeah.
cuz it's a whole different like thing there.
No, yeah.
And that's why to me, I was having that thought when I was at the school because I was like, man, like, I really just feel like I would for sure like want to do my research or something like, or I don't know, because I was also seeing just the interaction the kids having with each other, and I thought that was really nice. I was
Yeah.
like, I like that they do kind of like have that social interaction and like they're not afraid to like talk to people and like get to know people because they're so like surrounded by other kids, you know. So I don't know. Future me. It's something for future me to worry about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these fears are probably blown out of proportion. I think for the most part, I think sending your kid off to school is as safe as like going to go eat at a restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously there's people. There's gonna be bad people anywhere, but I think it'll be okay. At the end, everything's cool. You know, just had to sprinkle that one in
Yeah.
there. You know. Do you have more questions? or-
Yeah, I guess I'll blend these last two into one. Guess because we kind of went into it, but like I don't know, I still like the question. I was just gonna say, how do you deal with the conflict between the historical role of Catholicism as a colonizer religion and your personal and cultural beliefs as a Chicano person? And then I kind of wanted to add on, like, how do you feel about how it's such a big? Because I looked up this statistic: 82% of Mexico identifies as Catholic. That's a lot of people.
And it is
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about all that? Like, especially now that you guys know all the historical context of the religion and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, because I remember when Stevie talked about it once, where like when he was in like that rage mode of it.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about it, and it did make me sad because I was like, and I also got a little mad because I was like, yeah, like it sucks because it generally was because the fact that we got colonized, that it was like so like now it's so embedded. Like it's been so many years that's why like I think a lot of like Mexico identifies as like Catholicism because it's kind of like it's what's being taught, you know, like we're not being taught anymore about like our indigenous roots. We don't really learn much about like our indigenous like history. And like to me, that's why eventually after that I was having more of like a conflict. And I think I started kind of like educating myself a little more on like the other aspect of like the indigenous history and stuff. And it also, I guess for me is like difficult because I know like my mom is also like praises like like the baby Jesuses and like the Virgens and like she's decorated all over. So it's like already like super embedded in our family. And like to me, it's just like it's like a conflict. It's just like a conflict because it's like I know it's because of the fact that we got colonized and stuff that it's like there.
But how do you feel about it?
But I don't know. I think that's why I'm like I feel like
Oh, you
just
just feel
conflicted. Like
conflicted
I
about
don't know if like if I'm mad about it. I think I am a little mad about it.
Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
It's
like,
building
I feel
up.
Like, yeah, I feel like I am a little mad about it because like I feel like it has separated me from my indigenous side so much that I don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's what makes me mad is that like I don't know anything about that other side. And yeah, I'm just like, man.
No, for sure. I mean, like the way we talk about how it's kind of irreversibly embedded in us, it's probably irreversibly embedded in the culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it's difficult, right? Because like I love talking shit about religion. I love but every time I do, there's a little voice in the back of my head like, don't do that. You know. there's a sin in there. Like,
Yeah, there's a
that's
sin in
blasphemy.
there.
That's
Yeah.
commandment number 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
But I think that's why a lot of it, I've started to, I guess, be a little more connected to like spirituality in a way
yeah.
of like when I have like my little rocks or whatever you
Mhm.
guys want to call them, stones or my gems, right? Or like how now I praise a lot more like the universe and like earth and like the moon. Like I'm very like I also pray to the moon.
Yeah.
When I'm
That's an
going through
indigenous
shit,
aspect
yeah,
too.
when I'm going through shit, like I pray to the moon. So I talk both to La Virgen and the moon. And I mostly talk to the moon a lot more. Like I always just like, and again, like situations where I'm at, like I always talk to the moon and I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
like I'm going through the shit, or like
Yeah.
if something good is happening, then I'm thankful to the moon.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why, like for me, I've gotten more away from, I guess, Catholic to like being a lot more like spiritual with like the earth and like how when I see plants, like I'll sometimes like I'll compliment them. I'll be like, "Oh, you're really pretty."
Yeah.
It's kind of like those things. I think now, like I've tried to kind of separate myself from that a little more. But I know that it's like super embedded in my life,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
No, for sure.
And I think it's hard too because a lot more people are like super, I guess how you say, brainwashed into it, right? And like you hear it everywhere.
Yeah.
And I told Stevie once, I feel like sometimes it does annoy me when people post something and they're praising God. Like it
Yeah.
annoys me sometimes for some reason.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's like, I think it's the same thing of like, because I went to a Catholic school that I really, really want to like get myself out of it. And like people just praising that it sometimes is annoying to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they put too much into it.
Yeah.
When I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't think it should be really that way. Or
Oh,
because
definitely.
knowing of the history too, of like how like we were like colonized and like religious is what was taught and all that, and like so that you can be just like them and blah blah blah. And I think that's why it also kind of angers me when people kind of praise it,
Yeah.
especially on social media.
With me, it's like I almost feel like it's my purpose to let a lot of Mexican American people know that the religion that's the most popular, which is Catholicism, is an abusive religion that was like forced upon us, you know. And then you choose what to do with that information as you
Yeah.
like. But for me, I feel like it's absolutely necessary that more and more people are aware and become aware of that fact. Because I just can't stand you. What you were saying, like I was sitting over here and I felt like I was just like, it was starting to really build up like from something right here, like in my core of like, I sometimes like I'm out in public and I see Mexican Americans and they have like the tattoos of the cross or like a Jesus painting, or like, you know, I see very religious like
Yeah.
Mexican Americans. And it's not that it pisses me off that they're religious. It more just pisses me off that like so much of this like manipulation is like so embedded in us that people put it on their body, you know, like, and they have no idea that there was like centuries and hundreds of years of people being like murdered and assaulted and killed, and like bloodshed just being spilled everywhere, like because of just like something that they were trying to use in order to make you submissive, and then in order for you to look to the colonizers as like the superior. You know, like that's what like really gets me, is that it'd be different if I guess like the colonizers came and they were like, oh, you know, we're gonna teach you this religion because we feel like it's the true religion. But when you read a lot of the notebooks from the priests and the conquistadors, they didn't feel that way. They felt as though they were literally teaching them because that's what makes them submissive. That's what's gonna make them work for them. They weren't doing it because they felt like this is what is gonna make you align with God. They felt like this is what's gonna make you align with us. You know, and that type of shit, like it really like eats at me, and I hate it, like and I think of that like when I see like my own Mexican Americans, and a lot of them are like, oh, I thank God, like I think this, like it annoys me because I feel like an asshole that I'm like bro, like what you're believing in is like fucking bad for you, you know, like because I really do think you should spread love and respect a lot of people's like religions, you know. But I it's just like it irks me because it's like it's like in my blood, you know, like for centuries, like so many people were taught that like these ideas that are presented by the Catholicism are the right way to live.
Yeah.
When in reality, if you look at things through like a science-based or objective way, things like you should appreciate the environment. You should appreciate like what people show through gender diversity, or like these like concepts that now you see are liberal are actually ways that indigenous people thought of for a long, long time. And it was only recently that these ideas became villainized. And I don't know, it just like really irks me, man. Like it pisses me off. And like, and I mean, that's why I have my tattoo. I talk about all the time. It's the beheaded, like winged man, right? I don't want to say angel, because then people are going to be like, oh, Satan, you know? It's why it's beheaded, because like, I really do believe in that it's almost like my purpose sometimes to make sure people are educated on it. If I educate you and you don't respect that, and you're like, no, like, this has done a lot of good for me. And it has. A lot of people, you know, they turn their life around. They all of a sudden become maybe good dads. They were drug addicts. So there is a purpose there. But I see it as more, it's because just it's a philosophy of a lot of thoughts, you know? And with philosophy, obviously, if you live your way in certain ways, you will become a better person as long as you do that, you know? But I don't think that there's actually something out there that like is making you a better person, you know? And as far as like the idea of God, for me, I think about it as like there's energies and there's the universe and there is like spirits and stuff. But I think a lot of what people deem as like a religious and spiritual realm is still very embedded in like this European like Catholic like idea, you know? And that's so weird to me, because that's just one idea in like, and you look at the universe, how big it is, like there's no way that that's correct. You know, and I'm sorry, like I don't mean to disrespect people's religions or anything, but there's just something that like really irks me, because there's so much like fucking terrible like violence behind like a lot of these like ideas. I mean, conquistadors literally fucking beheaded people. They had I've read the books. They had these games where they would behead the wife and throw her into the river, and then let the husband go after her, because they knew that he wouldn't be able to do it and he would just drown. You know, literally just torture these people who came here and spread and were like, oh, you know, we're going to teach you the way, you're going to believe in our God. And then for hundreds of years, for the descendants of those people who were being tortured to then be like, oh, thank God, you know, thank God, like he protects me, like he's my savior. And it's like, bro, the people who taught our people that, they fucking hated us. They wanted us to eat each other alive. And to me, it's like so like it keeps me up at night to know that like so many people who are like indigenous descent are like, I thank like God and Jesus for like loving me. And I'm really trying not to like piss people off, because I know this is more of my thing. But like that's what I think about all the time, is that like a lot of that is just bullshit, you know? And like a lot of that was meant to make you like little, or like make yourself just like a little person, make yourself like feel belittled, you know? And I don't know. But that's where I feel. I didn't even mean to like go on a rant about it.
I knew you would. That's why I asked the question.
Well, because also like I guess what pisses me off is knowing that it's a continued erasure of like our indigenous culture. Like it's us. If like for me to accept it is me continuing to like go away from like my indigenous roots. And I think that's what pisses me off, because it generally always pisses me off knowing the fact that a lot of people were killed, and like a lot of like our people were just erased, and no one thinks anything of it. Like it's not a recognized thing of like we were all just like colonized, killed, tortured, all that, and it's like, and what they left was the whole like Catholicism, right? And that's why to me it's a big conflict, because not only was it I grew up with it, but it's also knowing the history and the origin of it. And it's like it just sucks.
Because I remember one of the stories that I read in the journals was that one of the priests, he came here to obviously what is now modern day Mexico, and he saw the games and the amount of like, it's so weird. Like he himself was like astonished by the amount of like dehumanization that the like Spaniards showed to like the ancient like indigenous people, and he went back to Spain and he told like everybody there like, oh my God, like you won't believe what they're doing there, like it's not the right way, it's not the religious way. And they killed him for speaking out and telling everybody about what they were doing over there. And like to me, it's like, bro, like how can you like justify that? And then nowadays be like, but it's okay. Like he's looking, Jesus Christ is looking after me. You know,
Yeah.
and to me, this is what I meant. Like I was going through my rage phase of like, bro, like, because in college was when I read all those books about it. And then that's when I was like, bro, like, you know what's funny? One side note, because I know I'm getting a little serious, but I remember when we were in class reading them. I remember every now and then, because I was like the only like everyone there was white. You know, they did that class thing where they would turn. Yeah, they all looked at me. They all turned around to look at me, and well, I fucked with my professor though, because he was white, and sometimes we would have independent like reading, and then but sometimes we would come to class and he'd read specific passages, and he would like read it and he would like look at me, but he wouldn't look at me in the sense of like he wanted my opinion. He would look at me like with empathy. And like it kind of made me feel like, it just made me feel like it's as if he just knows so much, like, because he's a historian, you know, he's a history teacher.
Yeah.
He just knows so much of like the veils like being taken off. Like I want to use the word woke, but he's like woke, I guess you could say, right? He's just educated in a lot of where like our origins come from. And he was looking at me as if to say like, if you don't know this, you should, you know? And from that point on was when like I really had that awakening of like, holy shit, like I'm an indigenous descent person, and a lot of Mexican Americans are indigenous descent, and for some reason we like identify ourselves as like these terms like Latino and Mexican, when in reality Mexican is just like another synonym for any other country, like saying I'm American. You know, and it makes no sense. And you go deep and you're like, well, that's because like you look at these conquistadors who came here, you look at these Spaniards who came here, they wanted that to happen, and they're still succeeding. Yeah, you know, and we get backlash all the time whenever I talk about this shit, and it's because that like brainwash is still in there. So many people are holding on to it, and they because it's like the security blanket. That's the way things have been for hundreds of years, you know. But that's pretty much all I have to say about that question. My bad. I don't mean.
No. That's exactly why I brought up the question, because I feel like I don't know. I was curious.
I was gonna say
no, not even specifically that. I just feel like what you said, bro. Like that's just horrible. Like that's just horrible. Like
conclusion.
Well, because like I mean, like if you bring into the modern day, right? There's people who fucking are in charge who use that religion as like this is the way you should live life. And it's like, motherfucker, if you read a book, if you read one book or one article, you'd know that the dogma that you're pushing has tons of like the exact opposite. Like, oh, love your neighbor, all life is sacred. But then they wiped an entire race off the fucking planet. Yeah. So my fucking ass, that's why you don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I find it pretty annoying. But I think you do as well. So
it also feels like growing up there was this thing that indigenous people in a way were like evil. Like at least for me, in my own perspective, I feel like they used to depict indigenous people as being the bad guy.
They do.
And that the colonizers were doing the right thing.
No, yeah, definitely. Like I remember, do you guys remember the missions, what we had to make? They conveniently left out the part of what they were doing. They would always say like, "Oh, look at these beautiful little churches they made." They left out the part where they had indigenous people as slaves there, and they left out the part of what those missions were doing. You know what I mean? We even had field trips to those missions, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, look how cool!" And then on the tour, they'd be like, "And here's what they had slaves." And anyways, you know, it's like
they even had us making like clay bricks, and like as if we were like slaves still.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a dark history that I think needs to be revealed, and a lot of people need to be aware of. Especially that shocking statistic, bro, that you told me that like so many people, like 80%. Basically 80% of Mexico is still like Catholic. Like to me, that's insane. But I like to stick to just Mexican American things because I've never was born in Mexico. I've been in Mexico a lot, but I wasn't born in Mexico and I haven't lived through that experience. So I'd love to hear what they would have to say. But as far as Mexican Americans, still Mexican Americans have a lot of religious people here. And like I said, like I do my best to try and be respectful. It's just like it irks me, man. And And
It's-
like I said, you literally can throw a rock and hit a mural of Jesus or
Yeah.
the Virgin Mary and stuff. It's like I don't. It's literally like it is the culture to a degree. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's a big aspect of it. It's not like this little this fun little thing they do. It's a good chunk of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know what I mean? So I don't know.
It's really
interesting.
because we would go to Mexico a lot, and I would go a lot with my parents, and it's super super like embedded. Like it's the thing there in Mexico, and it just made me think about So I used to have a boyfriend there, and one time I think we talked about like if I were to ever get pregnant or something like that. And I remember I told him, I was like, oh, like, I don't want to have kids. And I remember he was like, that's wrong. Like, that's wrong to have abortion.
Really?
Yeah. He was like, that's wrong. Like, why would you kill a baby? Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, what? I was like, you for real? Because he generally was really, really religious too. Because I'm telling you, like, in Mexico, everyone is super religious. Like, they praise God. Like, they like, he's on a high pedestal there, at least from like the town that we used to go to, right? Just speaking on like them. And like they always have celebrations, like everything's surrounded on just like the church there because it's really small. And I just remember when like we talked about it, and I just remember being like mind blown that like he was just so against it, that he was just so like, no, like that's wrong. Like God wouldn't like, that's not what God would want. He generally said like that's not what God would want, and like that's wrong because God didn't teach us that. And I was like, what the fuck? But like it's just like super like embedded. Like,
oh, definitely. I mean, like I remember I looked this up right now because it was eating me alive because I remember it. Because I remember the field trip to the mission. We took the train there. Did you guys go on that? We took the train, and we kind of spent the day there. We learned about stuff. I remember the bricks. They were like, oh, they did this, and they like, this is how they made it. They left out who was making the bricks, and they left out a lot of stuff.
They wanted us to recreate it.
Well, because I just looked this up right now. I just here's this quote from the article. It says, "Mission labor. At least 90,000 indigenous peoples were kept in well-guarded mission compounds throughout the state as de facto slaves." I don't remember learning that. Like, they didn't tell us that. They always left that fucking part out. It was always like, that 90 fucking thousand? That's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the article goes on to talk about how it's a Native American strife, not just because it goes all the way up to, I mean, the top of the state, right? Because I know there's like there's a name for the like road they took. I don't remember. But you know, it's not even just like a Native Mexican thing. It's it's just a Native people's thing, you know, of like that a lot. That's that like people forget, you know. So that's why I was curious, because like I think you guys are very in touch with your indigenous roots, and I feel like I don't hear a lot of that perspective. I just never hear it at all.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked. But yeah.
Yeah. So this is the religious episode.
Yeah.
Talk about religion the
Right.
whole episode. But
shit though.
Julie, what
90,000? Crazy.
I know you brought us some questions to bring us home. So we go ahead and change subjects.
Let me
Lighten up the tone a little bit.
Yeah, lighten up the tone a
Let me
little
pull it
bit.
up.
But don't worry. The fact that we're even talking about this, the fact that you're listening to this, and the fact that you're seeing this already shows a change, you know? Like I was talking about a little bit last week. I think it's one thing to not know, and it's another thing to know. And yeah, maybe you still don't know what to do, but at least you know, and you can then make plans, and then we can try and make something better.
Yeah.
You know? At the end of the day, everything's cool.
Yeah.
I like sprinkling that in there.
Our slogan.
Yeah, because I don't know. I like that name, and I like that idea of like, no matter how bad things can get, you know, at the end of the day,
so
everything's cool.
So would you say our podcast technically has a dark origin story?
Everything's cool. No, well, actually, I feel like I remember I said everything's cool the first time I remember in English, right? Because we also say it in Spanish. But in English, I remember the first time it came in my mind was after we took a shroom trip. And I remember I was thinking about how, like, oh my God, when you're on a shroom trip, like, everything's fucking, like, hitting you all at once. And you feel like these ideas never fucking stop. But then when they, like, subside, I feel like you start to see that a lot of your problems aren't as big as you thought, because you have that perspective you gained. and you realize that things in your life, no matter how bad they get, you know, everything's cool. That's kind of, and that's why I have this guy right here. Yeah. But
your questions.
yeah, my bad. A little origin story, I guess.
I mean,
people
since
didn't
we
know.
were talking about a little bit of like
Religion.
our past and like our upbringings.
Yeah.
What would you say is like a family tradition that you have and that you would like to pass down?
Quinces are cool. Yeah, quinceañera is cool. I think I'd give my daughter a quince, or at least I try to. If I wasn't broke as shit or something. I like Dia de los Muertos. I think that's cool too. I like that our mom celebrates it and like goes all out for it, and puts the rose petal. Because I also like that idea of like celebrating members that have passed away. Family tradition. What else do we have? I like that we just like do shit together.
Are you gonna go to IHOP every birthday?
Yeah, you know what?
So there's this tradition that we do where it's like every time it's our birthday, the morning of, we go to IHOP and just get breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Before they used to always give us like ice cream and like stuff. But now it's just always like, we're going to IHOP tomorrow or something like that. Usually we go really early, especially because like our dad works like super early. But that's like a tradition that like we have. Sometimes I'm kind of like, I don't want to wake up so early, but I think it's so like, it's such a tradition now that I'm like, I have to go.
Yeah. It's deeper
We have
than
to
that,
go.
right?
We have to do it. So you would keep that?
Yeah, I think I would keep that totally. And then, Brandon, what do you think you do? Or will people have to tune in to the Patreon to hear everybody else's answers? You see how I did that?
Yeah. Well, we do have Patreon, but we're not gonna make it that. We have another topic for it, no?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
But just to let you
sneak
know. All right. Well, I will let you know after I've done.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
Do you have like, do you guys do traditions or anything?
I don't know if this counts. No, I mean, I wouldn't consider it, but it's something that I feel like I kind of noticed a trend. My dad was a gardener, and his father before him was a gardener. So needless to say, I feel like my dad really likes plants. He never openly says it. He never like openly is like, oh, I love plants. He just be loving plants. You know, he just does stuff. He'll grow stuff, or he'll be like, oh, go pick me up this tree, and he'll give me like the scientific name of the tree or the plant. Or like someday he'll wake up and he'll be like, I don't really like that the way that looks anymore. Let's rip it out and put his stuff. Or he'll teach me about how like this old trick his dad used to do. I talk about it all the time because I think it's so funny. If a tree that is supposed to give fruit, like let's say a plum tree, I have a plum tree, isn't giving, or like an avocado tree isn't giving. My dad said that his dad would say, go hit it with an axe and scare the tree. And he says he swears to God that it would always work, that the tree would get scared and start giving fruit so that you wouldn't cut it down. So whenever that happens, he always tells me like, oh, go speak really loudly next to the tree and say you're going to take it out and it'll start giving fruit. And it seems like it works. Probably doesn't, but like, I don't know. I think it's fun. So I guess if I had to pick a tradition, even though it's not really an unofficial tradition, it'd be to like continue like that aspect of things, like gardening and plants and stuff like that. Cause I really like it. I think it's fun. It's very calming for me.
And you have been, no? You have your own plants and stuff?
My dad says I have the green thumb, so.
That's adorable.
Because like
That's cool.
I'm growing a pineapple. I'm growing some green onions, some regular onions, white onions. I have a plum tree. I'm hoping my peach tree gives because I really like peaches. But yeah, it's something I enjoy that I never really give credit to. I just kind of like, it's part of my life. So I'd like to do that.
That's cool.
You should grow some mushrooms, bro.
Mushrooms?
No, I'm not talking about the psychedelic kind. Just
or weed.
Or weed.
Grow weed. You probably could grow weed. Is it
could,
legal here in California? Yeah, it is. It's just
grow
hard,
it?
no? It's just really
I don't
hard.
know. I haven't.
I
looked
think it is
into
legal to grow weed here. I think it's just really hard.
I think it is hard to grow it though.
Yeah, I think you have to build like basically an attic,
Oh really?
like a little shed. Yeah, because it
Crazy.
apparently weed only grows in like specifically like 65.2% like degree weather.
Oh yeah, I mean, you guys have been in my house. You seen the giant oak tree we have?
Mm-hmm.
I really love that tree. I think it's so cool. And like my dad knows everything about it. Like he'll be like, oh, like they got to trim this and do that, and he'll know like I don't know. I just think that's cool because I don't know. There's something about it. So I'd like to give that, because I don't really have don't know. My family really does that, a lot of tradition stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like maybe I'll start it. But yeah,
That's cool.
What
I feel
about
like
you?
I do like the Day of the Dead stuff, like spreading like the petals and all that. I think that's really cool. I feel like I want to do a lot more like for like Christmas and New Year's kind of stuff. Because I feel like we used to do a lot, but now it's like it's changed since like when we were young to now. So I'd like to like I guess bring some of those things back. I'm trying to think of something else that we usually do earlier in the year, but I don't think we really do anything now. The IHOP thing is cool. I think that's cool that we do that.
is there a specific reason that started, or you just noticed that there was a trend and then you were like, let's keep it going?
For
IHOP.
IHOP,
Pretty much. It
Yeah.
like it kind of just started as a thing, and then now it's become like this thing.
Oh yeah.
Which in a
Yeah.
way it's kind of cool because it
That's
grew
how
organically.
That's how traditions
Yeah.
start, right?
Yeah.
well, because it's like there's one in our neighborhood, right? And I think where my dad had his shop, it was right next to it. So I think it was like we eat there, and then he can just go
Go to
straight
work.
to work.
That's cool.
And I think it just stayed like that. I feel like we've even tried going to other IHOPs, and we
Yeah,
don't like
it doesn't
them.
work.
It doesn't work. We're like
Specifically
nah.
that I have.
Yeah, we
And the
always
guy
go-
knows us too.
Yeah, the guy knows us.
He's always like, oh, birthday today?
Yeah, he gives us
Yeah.
free shit. Yeah. Oh shit. Well, I didn't say his name. It's okay. I don't know
Or
if we'll get in trouble.
he'll ask my dad questions about his car.
Maybe IHOP will sponsor us.
You're gonna be seeing the IHOP logo
Oh,
right on my
it'll be
laptop.
it'll be the
The-
Todo Chilos meal.
the
It'll
Todo
be
Chilo
it'll
meal?
be 3 pancakes.
Oh, it'll be 3 pancakes.
3 of everything.
The Philly cheesesteak, and then what do you like getting?
I like the hash browns.
Oh, that would be bomb.
pan-
I'd get that.
I feel like it'd probably be like separate meals. Like yours would probably be the Philly cheesesteak and fries, and it'd be like, I don't know, there'd be a cool deal with it, $3.99, like, and yours would be like a hash brown breakfast. And I'd pick the pancakes because it's like
I like
Can't go
I
wrong
like
with
the
pancakes.
hash browns and like the sausage links.
and
There
we
you
and
go.
we and then we could have our exclusive, very own hot chocolate, the Todo Chido hot chocolate.
I do like IHOP hot chocolate. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
we all do. All 3 of us. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it'd be like the taste of, I guess, like a shroom. It's like psychedelic.
I guess it'd be like, I don't know, maybe our colors as the sprinkles.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I
I
don't know.
think so. It sounds pretty bomb. I'd go for some right now. Yeah.
I'm getting really hungry. So my next question was, if you could write a letter to your younger self, what would you say?
A letter? Oof.
All right? I have an answer, but is this a cop out of an answer? I would, if I had that opportunity, I probably wouldn't say anything because I feel like, who am I without the mistakes that I've made?
I was gonna say something similar. I was gonna write basically just everything will happen as it needs to be.
I probably just would abstain from telling him anything.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know.
I would just say
Maybe if I'm older, I'll be like, why didn't you do that? You know?
yeah. I would just say everything happened as it needs to be.
Be like,
And
why didn't you start acting? Why were you so shy?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
I think
I could have had my stardom really young.
I think we're all kind of too young to kind of have that idea. I don't think we've like become failures yet.
I could do like
Failures.
invest in Bitcoin, you know?
Yeah.
Or invest in Bitcoin.
I just think you're right. I just agree with what you said. Like all the
Or-
mistakes that who am I right now if I didn't make those mistakes?
yeah, you know what I'd do? I'd be like, in 2016, the Cavs are gonna go down 3-1. Bet all your money on the Cavs.
Damn.
And
There
then-
you go. Julie,
I
what'd
feel
you do?
like one big thing that I kept thinking about was I think I just tell myself that everything's gonna be okay. Like,
Yeah.
Aw.
I feel like I've talked about it. Wait, have I talked about it here? Well, I haven't really talked about it much, but I feel like when I was younger, I was really like sad, and I think I just didn't like the world because of how different I was always treated. And I feel like I would just tell myself like things are gonna be fine, like because I was also
That's
having
sweet.
this other thing where a year ago I was going to a concert, and I remember I was getting ready, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I felt so proud because I was like, I feel like I've turned into the woman that when I was younger I always wanted to see. Like I feel like I was such at like a peak of like where I wanted to see and how I wanted to see myself as an adult. And
Yeah.
I think I was like super proud of myself. And I think that's what I would tell my younger self is that like, I'll be fine. Like you'll get what you want, you know? And I feel like the world will be good for you. And I feel like I've had those like little moments now where I sometimes still like, I guess, talk to my younger self and I'm like, you wouldn't imagine where you would be like in like your years that are going to come. And I feel like it always makes me happy to like kind of reflect on it. Cause I feel like personally, I feel like I've come such a long way just in everything. And like growing up when I was younger to like now. So like my teens to like my young adults. Which I feel like gets me even more excited of like
What's
how,
next?
yeah.
That's cool.
Scares me a little bit, but cause like anything can happen.
Yeah.
I feel like cause there is those years that like were really harder than others. And like we always talk about how like we went through like family stuff. So that's why it also makes me, I guess, be a little more conscious of like anything can happen. And I feel like in the end, everything's cool.
Wow, she said it, and there's our
There's our
episode.
episode.
But really quick announcement: we are gonna start a Patreon, and it starts right now.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. Links will be in our bio. It'll be in all of our pages, all of our social medias. It might even be where I'm talking right now. If we figure out how to have like a link on it.
It depends on
If this guy, Big Brain over here, figures it out.
Yeah.
But
we're gonna end off the show for people who aren't subscribed to Patreons. But if you want to hear our conversation continue, go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon.
and all the chains are gonna be off. I'm gonna start spewing some
I
shit.
don't know how we really feel.
Yeah, I'm gonna start saying some anarchist shit. I'm gonna be this could even if I wanted it to be on YouTube, it wouldn't be able to because we'd probably get banned.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, if you want to support the show, that's a great way to support the show. We would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Make sure you guys check it out.
I hope
We
you guys
love
have a good day.
yeah, but,
Genuinely have a good day.
we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.